T2's Robert Patrick, Scott Wolf, Mark Dacascos, and Alyssa Milano. Double Dragon.
You said it. We don't really have to wear these, do we?
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and today I've got Mark Pellegrini, freelance writer, creative partner. With Tim Lim, you guys do all the My Hero Macadamia, Black Hops, all those great books. You got Kamen America out right now on Kickstarter, and if you're interested in that book, there will be a link in the video description. But we're not here to talk about Kamen America. We did that last week. We're here to talk about video game adapted movies. One of your sweet spots, right?
Absolutely. I love them because they're almost like they're beautiful disasters. Because 9 times out of 10, I mean, they're awful, but they're entertaining. Yeah,
I remember the first time I saw Super Mario Brothers, the movie. That was interesting. I was like, I don't think you can watch this sober. And then Double Dragon was really weird. I thought these guys were Asian. Why are these guys white?
Double Dragon. Oh man! So Double Dragon is the one that. Guess what? It didn't make my top 5 list. Because that's one of the ones that I just can't take. I can't take that one.
All right, Mark, lay it on me. What's your number 5 video game movie?
Number 5 for me, and this one's kind of cheating, but I've always viewed it as a video game movie because I understood the franchise as a video game franchise first. Is Alien versus Predator. Now, I know that it was a comic book first, and then a toy line, and then a video game, but I didn't know about the comic. I didn't know about the toy line. I just knew about the arcade game. So I've always viewed Alien versus Predator as a video game movie. I mean, and the Alien versus Predator movie was directed by Paul Anderson, who was famous for doing Mortal Kombat at the time. So he was already a video game movie director. And as bad as AVP is, it's not a good movie at all. It does have the same sensibilities as Paul Anderson's Mortal Kombat. It's very action heavy, and it does feel like a video game when you're watching it. So that's the one that I would put at the bottom of my list. Not a good movie. It's not a good Alien movie. It's not a good Predator movie. It's not a good movie at all. But if you look at it as a video game movie, and that sliding grade scale of quality, then yeah, I think the AVP movie is good enough.
That's so weird because that is like one of those movies that should have been great. Like everything was there for a really good movie, but they totally blew it by throwing too many people in it. So I remember going and seeing it with my buddy, and every time the aliens and the predators were about to fight, we're like, "Oh, this is great!" And then like a human would show up, and like, "Oh no!" Right? There's that really cringe scene at the end where the really hot human protagonist, like she's about to make out with a predator. They're like making googly eyes at each other. I was like, this is so weird. This is as bad as Mark Wahlberg, when he's going to make out with the ape in Planet of the Apes.
They almost have like a budding romance arc in the movie. And I think it was intended to be like a big brother, little sister. And there's a part where he strips a xenomorph's exoskeleton and gives it to her as like a spear and shield, like he's helping her. And just like that entire sequence is like, I think they're trying to go for the, a big brother looking out for his little sister dynamic. But I mean, I've seen just as many people say like, it was like he's giving her flowers. Yeah. It's like this is really awkward. The only thing I liked really about Alien versus Predator, I liked that it brought the Queen alien back as something, it was done with CG, like 1999 circa CG, so it wasn't very good, but it was better than the last time we saw the Queen alien at that point, which was Alien Resurrection, where she's like pregnant like a human and had like a big distended belly, and it was like they took all the menace from Aliens out of the character. I was kind of glad they gave the Queen some bite again, even if the movie wasn't very good. But that's why it's number 5 on my list, because it's not very good.
What's the number 4 video game movie?
So number 4 is also a not very good one, but it's one that I can at least derive some entertainment out of, and that would be Street Fighter. Because Street Fighter is a terrible Street Fighter movie, but it's a fantastic G.I. Joe movie. And so when I watch Street Fighter, I can enjoy it from that lens, where it's like, okay, so what if the Street Fighter characters were Joes and the Shadaloo characters were Cobras? That's exactly what this movie is. And it's one of those, they do try to slip in video game stuff into that movie. It's like they're halfway trying and not very well, but they're still putting it in there. Like there's a part where Ken and Ryu, as they were pronounced in the 90s, are fighting like the Shadaloo grunts in like a locker room. And they're trying to give Ken and Ryu their special moves. So like Ken does a Shoryuken, but it's really weird. Like you can tell that just below where the camera cuts off is probably a guy holding him up by the waist and like twisting him in the air so he can do this really weird slow motion uppercut. And Ryu does like a Hadouken, but he kind of punches with the flats of his palms, and there's like a big flash, and that's it. Like that's their version of the Hadouken. Like you're trying, you know. Freaking Guile, he does do a flash kick when he's fighting M. Bison at the end, but there's no flash. It's just sort of a weird somersault kick, but they at least made an attempt. An attempt was made.
Yeah, so me and my brothers, we were playing Street Fighter 2 all the time. We actually were excited about that movie too. We went and saw it, and the way that they put a lot of the characters in it, I remember the sumo fighter was like, he was like a driver of a van. It's like, what is he doing there?
It's so weird. E Honda and Balrog are, for one thing, they made Balrog a good guy when he's one of the 4 bosses. You know, he's supposed to be a bad guy. But E Honda and Balrog are like the tech people who drive a van and are like the hackers on the computers. Like, what? You made the weird boxer a hacker?
Yeah, well, the only real saving grace of that movie, in my opinion, is Raul Julia just going over the top.
Fantastic
in Bison.
He's just chewing that scenery. It's great.
Yeah, you could tell he knew it was in a bad movie, and he decided he was going to make the best of it. All right, what's your number 3 video game movie?
All right, so number 3 is that middle spot where it's a really bad movie, but I love to watch it. And it's a bad video game movie, but a good kids movie just in and of itself to watch in a vacuum. And it's Super Mario Brothers, the movie. We talked about it a little bit last time I was on your show, but I love that movie. I saw it when it first came out. I was a kid, and I played all the Mario games. But even when I saw the movie and recognized that it was in no way, shape, or form similar to the video games I was playing, I still enjoyed it because it's still a really fun and entertaining movie. It was directed by the husband and wife team who created Max Headroom, and the set design was the same set designer who did Blade Runner. So it's got that weird like cyberpunk aesthetic to it, which like who the hell plays, you know, Super Mario Brothers and says, "Oh man, this would be better if it was cyberpunk." That was such a bizarre lens to do everything through, but they adapt all of the Mario Brothers video game aspects into that cyberpunk visual. So like the fire flowers are there, but they're flamethrowers. Yoshi's there, but he's a velociraptor. The Goombas are there, but they're weird deformed mutants. It's all there. They even slide down a pipe in the scene to escape. I think they're escaping from prison. And they all get on a mattress and they like just sled down a pipe. I'm like, well, I guess that counts as pipe warping in this weird version of Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, I remember, you know, like I said, I watched it like on late night TV, and I was like, is Dennis Hopper Koopa? I was like, what?
Yeah.
Is it because his hair is spiky? Like, he's not a turtle.
It's so weird because like at the end they use like those like I don't know, those de-evolution guns on him, and you think that's when he's going to turn into, you know, the big turtle dinosaur, right? Like, oh, this is the part where he actually turns into King Koopa, and then he falls into a bucket and he turns more into a piranha plant, like just the big chomping head pops out of the bucket and then it turns to slime and dissolves. Like, okay, well, almost movie.
It was really such a strange movie. It was definitely funny. It's a lot of weird stuff going on there. Let's get to some of the 2 good movies, you know, on your list. What's the number 2 video game movie adaptation?
You know, I feel like I'm jumping the gun. You know, maybe it's too early to say that this is one of the 2 best video game movies ever made, but it's not a competitive field, and I don't think you have to try very hard to be a good video game movie. It's just because nobody else has really tried before. So my number 2 best video game movie is Sonic the Hedgehog, which I saw last week, and I thought it was great. it's a kids movie, and so when you go in as a kids movie, there's going to be a lot of tropes and a lot of things and storytelling elements and the rhythm to it that you're familiar with if if you're 35 and you've seen a million movies. But if you're a kid, if you're the target audience going in, all this stuff is new to you. You don't know cliches and tropes yet. You don't know these storytelling rhythms. And the kids who were in the audience when I went to see it were loving the movie. They were enjoying it. And that made me happy, just knowing that something that I liked as a kid is still popular with kids today. The wheelhouse of kids these days. But Sonic the Hedgehog was one that I really, really liked as a kid. But also just as a movie itself, as an adaptation of the video games, all the stuff from the games is there, including really esoteric and obscure narrative elements from the freaking video game manuals. It's all adapted, and it's all adapted accurately, and they find clever ways to do it. Sonic has a pouch full of rings, and he uses the rings to warp from one world to another. And during the big showdown with Dr. Robotnik and his Eggmobile, his hovercraft, Sonic gets hit and knocked down, and when he hits the ground, he loses his rings, and the rings all make that sound, and they all scatter everywhere. And that's when everyone thinks Sonic is dead. That is a really clever way to implement that gaming mechanic where Sonic loses all of his rings, he dies. And they put that in the movie, and they did such a great job with it. But the movie is full of aspects like that where it follows a plot line and a narrative similar to the video game. The characters are all adapted accurately, and all the little nuances from the games, they're all in the movie, and they're all done organically and naturally.
Obviously I haven't seen it. The closest theater is about 4.5 hours away. I haven't got to see Sonic yet, but it sounds like Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik really a little bit over the top and great.
Oh, he's so Jim Carrey, obviously, as a Hollywood celebrity, is someone I guess I wouldn't like as a person, but as an actor, I mean, his Robotnik is perfect because Dr. Robotnik in the cartoons and the anime and the manga, he's, with the exception of that Saturday morning cartoon from the 90s where he was an evil overlord and very dark and serious, that's the outlier. Robotnik 9 times out of 10 is a goofball comedy relief villain who just happens to do things that are very dark and very ominous. And Jim Carrey just nailed that. I mean, he's really funny, he's really manic, he's really expressive, but the things he's doing are pure evil and destructive. And he finds that great balance in the character, and he absolutely steals the show on it, almost away from the CGI cartoon character, which is amazing. Jim Carrey, just by virtue of being Jim Carrey, is more cartoonish than the cartoon character in the movie.
All right, so I think I know what your number one is, but I got to know for sure. What's your number one video game movie adaptation?
Mortal Kombat!
Gotta be. It's so good.
It's, everyone's saying Sonic the Hedgehog is the first good video game movie ever made. And I'm like, oh, come on now. We're not going to pretend that Mortal Kombat didn't happen, because it did. And it's amazing that, so Mortal Kombat is a good action movie. I mean, yeah, it's dumb. It's supposed to be a tournament, but the bracket doesn't make any sense. It's just kind of everybody randomly fighting each other and somehow moving up in a tournament. But it's amazing in that when you watch Mortal Kombat, I think only Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 had come out by that point. And it's a fighting game series that didn't have a lot of story to it. But what story there was, the movie adapts it accurately. It's got all the characters from the game in there, including the secret character Reptile. He fits into the movie. The plots of the Outworld and Earth and the Mortal Kombat tournaments, the gods and Raiden, all that crap. It's all implemented accurately in the story of the movie. And in fact, the movie did so well with those elements that the original content it created got adapted back into the games. Kano wasn't Australian before the movie, but people liked Australian Kano so much, now he's Australian in the games.
I think it also spun out a couple of characters, right?
I think
the princess.
Jax. Oh, Kitana. So I think Kitana was in Mortal Kombat 2. I'm not sure about Jax. I don't know if Jax was created for the movie and then put into the games, or if he was in Mortal Kombat 2 first and then put into the movie. He only has a really small role in it. And then Shao Kahn shows up at the end, and it's the dumbest, greatest thing where this giant 100-foot skull guy pops up, and then all the Mortal combatants, they all Kia! They're about to fight him. It's so dumb, but I love it.
Yeah, it's such a fun movie, and they incorporated some of the fatalities in there, and I remember in the video game you could do one special code, and if you're Johnny Cage, like there'd be an autographed picture of him.
Oh, the friendship. Yeah, they got the friendship move in there. They've got the finishing moves. They have death by the pit at the end when he fights Shang Tsung. And every character in the movie gets one of their special moves. Sonya has her scissor kick where she breaks Kano's neck. Johnny has a shadow kick. Scorpion's got his harpoon and teleportation. Like all of that stuff is in there. They didn't half-ass it. Even Liu Kang does a fireball and a bicycle kick at the end of the movie. Like they didn't pretend like, oh, we can't give them special moves. That would be weird. Like, no, like this is Mortal Kombat. It's okay if it's weird.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't like about that movie, if I'm being honest, is the guy they picked for Raiden. It was
Christopher Lambert. Yeah, the
Christopher
Highlander.
Lambert. It made no sense.
I think he was drunk in that movie because he's all over the place. He will switch gears in the middle of a sentence. He'll be very dark and ominous and serious, like, and then the legions of Outworld will invade the earth, and like they couldn't get Christopher Lambert to do 2 takes on anything, so they just had to splice what footage they could together.
Yeah. Other than that, I have to agree with you. Mortal Kombat's excellent. It has a great soundtrack too. I have 2 movies that I'm surprised didn't make your list that I would consider among the best video game adaptations for movies. One would be actually the very first Lara Croft Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie.
I have not seen any of the Lara Croft Tomb Raider movies because I didn't have a PS1. I had an N64, so I never got to play the Tomb Raider games back in the day. So they don't really have a connection to me. But I've heard that from Tomb Raider fans, at least the first Lara Croft movie was good. So
yeah, I agree with that one. And the other one would be the very first Resident Evil. I actually thought was okay.
Ooh, that was one that that was actually kind of like battling for my number 5 spot with Alien versus Predator, which is funny because so Mortal Kombat, Alien versus Predator, and Resident Evil are all Paul W.S. Anderson movies. It's like he's kind of got he's not as bad as he's not as bad as Yui Bowl in terms of video game movies, but he's just a couple notches above that. But Resident Evil, I've seen it 2 or 3 times, and it hasn't grown on me because I mean I like the Resident Evil games, but I view the original Resident Evil games as being more an aesthetic horror kind of game, where it's really more about eeriness and what's lurking around the corner. And one zombie popping out at you is a pain in the ass, One zombie is enough. But that's not the kind of movie that the Resident Evil movie was. The Resident Evil movie
is an action movie.
It's an action movie. It's very loud and bombastic and over the top, and that just wasn't the kind of Resident Evil movie I was expecting or wanted. So it just didn't do it for me.
Well, all right, Mark. I want to say thank you very much. It was a great list, talking about some of the weird, crazy video game movie adaptations we've had over the years. Things are getting better, and I want to say thank you, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no, it's great to be on.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.